Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 14th, 2023 at approximately 4:30 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life, and the philosophies of life I talk about are the same ones that I actually guide my own life by. Now, I've shared these tools with literally thousands of people with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. So, with that in mind, I figured today we'd look at, because we were a little off kilter yesterday, so I figured today we would look at gaming, but we're going to combine it. The link between gaming, the consortium, and the real world itself. And yes, like I said, everything is connected. Okay, but before I get into all of that, we have Steve Knox in with the gold. We have Emily Tonga in with the silver. And I do believe that's all we've got in the house, right? Well, we've got 5 in the house, but, what the heck. Sorry, we got 2 in the house for the moment. But I'm not complaining about that by any functional stretch. Now, right off the bat, things have been... I think I've got a little bit of a delay on my video, or my eyes are working overtime. But there is definitively a link between all of the above. Okay, when we take a look at the consortium itself, let me see now. Why, pray tell? Oh, because that's not set up on the right line. Let's try that. There we go. Well, glad you joined us for the live one today there, Steve. The funny thing is, I keep getting asked by numerous people, both online and offline, why doesn't they, what is the consortium here for? Are they gearing up to invade? What's the purpose? Well, the consortium itself is literally the peacekeepers in the area. They literally make sure that that planets are not being taken over, even ones that aren't in the consortium itself. But the reality of it is that the planets they're most concerned with are the Caboran, which are literally another race. Okay. As a matter of fact, you live on the back of one. Okay, the one we're living on happens to be Esau. Now, you know her as Mother Earth, Earth, Gaia, Mother Nature, any number of names. Joe, how you doing? Glad you could join us. So what do we got here? We got Steve with the gold. We got Emmy with the silver. We have Joe in with the bronze. But the consortium is not here to protect man. Okay, to protect mankind. They are here to protect the Caboran. Mankind just happens to be the caretaker of Earth right now at this point. And between you, me, the fence post, and the internet, they're doing an absolutely pathetic job of it. Okay, greed, avarice, and this neat little idea of immediate gratification seems to have taken dominant reign over what's going on in this world. However, with that in mind, we can actually change this world. But it's going to take a fair chunk of work. Okay, now the biggest thing we have to look at is how it's all set up. Ultimately, Emmy, you're absolutely correct. The one difference is that in the consortium, the one primary difference, I'll give you 2. The first one is that the speaker is elected based on what they're dealing with. It may change from time to time, but the speaker is only there to make sure that everybody that wants to speak gets a chance to speak in turn. Okay. There, you will never see a vocal argument in the consortium. A bloodbath, quite possibly, but I'll get to that in a minute. But ultimately, that is what they do. Okay, they literally go in and they sit down. Now, there is a Council of 12, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But the consortium itself is a very big array, very much like the UN, very much like in the Star Wars series. Okay, where you see all of those floating discs and all of the different senators around. Same idea. Okay, the big difference there is they're not all in person. Quite often, it's done on a holographic interface. Okay, but there is inside the consortium. Nobody sits there and goes, "Oh, we're going to war with that person across the room." Doesn't happen. Okay, primarily because the moment one of the people in the consortium itself in the meeting hall, one of them goes and utters that, and they are going to be evicted from the hall very summarily without a whole lot of there's no real effort, there's no real trial or anything. It's like you're gone. If they argue when they're told to step out, well, it's actually quite simple. They're allowed to argue. They will get killed on the floor. Okay, they won't even make it out of the building. So you think the UN has some pretty stiff rules. It's nothing compared to them. And I see, well, that was an interesting way to freeze. I can see we're going to have all kinds of fun with streaming today. So if the video streaming freezes, frankly, I can't do a thing about it. Now, what I can do is we can close that off. I'm just shutting down a few different and we cancel that. Yeah, so we're gonna have streaming. Streaming ought to be entertaining, but with that in mind, where are we here? Yeah, sure. Now I can't get into that either. And I don't. What do we got here? Shadow, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Looks like we're having streaming and having bandwidth problems. This is why. Whoa. This is why I'm going to be upgrading my computer as soon as I can. But Shadow, let's see. Steve, Emmy, Joe. Shadow, you are in with honorable mention. What do we got here? So well, that's not the right one. There we are. This is the link. This is the link to Shadow's live stream. So drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, do give him a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You know, and then share the daylight out of it. That would be great. And there we go. We're mobile again. Lord knows what's going on over there. But the consortium itself, first of all, it is a governing body to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Very much like on many of the planets, they've got a one world government. On Earth, we have the UN. They're all set up in very similar fashion. Okay, there are some pretty distinctive differences. But one of the big things that we got to look at here is they are here to simply make sure that the rules of the consortium are dealt with. The concerns that affect the entire consortium are dealt with. Okay, that's the big thing we got to look at. But is it a necessary thing? Certainly. Now, where's the link? Well, when we look at the consortium and Earth, you are very right there. I mean, it's very much like the UN. Okay, with the obvious difference that they don't tend to argue back and forth. Try and kill each other, certainly, but they don't argue. What do I got here? Could be, but I wasn't on this weekend StreamYard. So I'm not quite certain how, I mean, for all I know, it could be. Could also be because of the fact that I blew my own computer apart, so I've gone back to an older version. Personally, I have no idea, Joe, so I hope somebody in the room has some idea. When I get the new computer, by the way, I am going to see about upgrading to StreamYard and see if I can do that side of it. But the consortium is there to simply ensure that the whole of the consortium is taken into consideration. A lot of it is done by remote. I'm thinking sooner or later, and maybe it's already happened, that the UN is also going to be set up where people can attend via remote. I'm thinking that's the way it's going to go, and this is one of the reasons why I'm looking at upgrading the computer. Of course, the fact I've only got 12 gig on this computer. Now, here's a question for those of you that actually have a YouTube channel yourself or already streaming. Where it comes to the computer itself, how much RAM do you recommend on board the computer? Because I'm just going to be setting it up to simply work on for the channel. I'm going to be buying a laptop capable of running the second monitor, but I'm going to be buying a laptop strictly for the channel. But what I'd like to know is how much RAM you figure is necessary for that. Just a thought. Now I'm figuring I managed to get some sleep today. Let me just see here. Ouch. Get that out of my way. That can go over there. That was near disaster on my feet. Okay. Get my desk all cleared again. Primarily what it is I get caught up doing other things and get sidetracked. But at least I remember to close the door this time. What have we got here? Oh, well, I appreciate that, Shadow. Because I'm going to be getting just a dedicated computer for the streams. I've got nothing else on it. Everything else can be done elsewhere. I just want to make sure I will be getting an independent, external camera as well. I've already got the external mic. Of course, I do get a kick out of the fact it doesn't stay where it belongs, but what the heck. But when we're looking at the consortium, it really does work very much like the modern UN. The thing you got to remember is that the one thing that every member planet of the consortium has is a one world government. But understand, a one world government does not mean a single leader. Okay, it literally means that everybody's involved in it. That's the big thing we have to look at. Now, the UN right now, I don't follow the news, as I've told you. The thing I have noticed, though,
is for an organization that is supposed to be dealing with, that's supposed to be helping keep peace on the planet. Well, frankly, not doing as well as I'd like. Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And let us find this little thing here. That one. And this is the link to Nathan's show. So we copy that. Pop it in here. And here's the link to Nathan's show. Now, drop in, do us all a favor. Drop in, give him a look. If you like what he's got to say, give him a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel. And then share the daylights out of the thing. That would be really appreciated. You're more than welcome there, Nathan. Things are moving forward. So I'm looking at, I know what the consortium does. And yeah, in the consortium, you don't get arguments per se. You may get a bloodbath depending, but that's frowned upon. Now I think you said something about you had backup at work today there, Nathan. Oh, by the way, the good news, this is the chart I was referring to when I was talking to you earlier, Nathan. It does have a new home. As you can see, it's already been tagged. Okay, but it's just a flow chart, but it does have a place to go. Oh, where are we? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I kind of figured that, Charlotte. You started, where are we here? Yeah, you start in about 10 minutes, don't you? I got to ask, and I'm sure I've asked this before, but your show is done online, is it not there? Like you do yours online, a lot of there, Shadow? Or do you actually have people come over and work old style tabletop? But I've been studying the way that humans run their UN, the way the consortium runs, and taking that into consideration as I'm building my campaign. Okay, to make sure I've got the whole 9 yards. To bring it together as much as I can. Like I said, everything is connected. The more you can get tied together, the easier it is to make it happen. One of the things I'm looking at is, okay, we've got in my campaign, I've got all the different gods. Yes, there's lawful good ones and chaotic evil, the whole 9 yards. But in the overall picture, when you're looking at all the gods, consider those members of the UN, if you will. They abide by the rules. Okay, even if they don't like each other, because there's nothing that says that everybody in the Senate or everybody in the committee has to like each other. Just says you got to work together. That's all it says. Okay, and with that in mind, okay, when I started putting this together, it's like, okay, the gods are keeping in balance. Now, to be clear, I believe personally in one God at the top of it, but do understand, he ain't the top of the totem pole. Well, quite frankly, he told me that himself. But I'm doing my best to make my gaming world as realistic as I can get it. Including the fact we've still got magic, we've still got all of that. But the consortium is here for one primary purpose, and that is to protect Earth, to protect Esau, not to protect humans. No, they are not coming down. The consortium is not going to come down and straighten this mess out. Sorry, guys, you created it, you get to fix it. Now, yes, I am certainly going to do what I can to point out where I see the flaws. Okay, I can explain it for you, but cannot understand it for you. The consortium, where are we here? The consortium itself is not in a different galaxy, but they do come from all over the local area. Quite frankly, they come, and the whole consortium itself pretty much encompasses what we call the Milky Way and some of the fringe elements around the outside of it. It is expanding. Okay, but in any event, they are not here to disrupt Earth's evolution. They are not here to go, here's some weapons, we're going to balance out, and we're going to give you guys better weapons so you can defeat your enemies. The consortium is not into weapons marketing. Okay, but they are simply in this area. Okay, well, like I said, the Milky Way is a pretty big area. But yes, they have they've got stable wormholes they've got access to. Black holes they do not go through. Let us understand, even with the consortium, they go through the black hole, and they're pretty much hooped. Okay, because the black hole will tear everything apart, molecule by molecule. Okay, that's just the way that goes. Not a pleasant run. But the consortium is, right now, their flagship is sitting inside just the other side of the sun, but inside the sun's photosphere, so that nobody can actually detect the thing, and nobody from a lower, if you will, civilization can find them. That's why they put it on the other side, because you see, over on the other side of the sun, on the other side from Earth, the Mobians do have the ability to spot them, but you got to remember, Mobians are part of the consortium. They are part of that whole conglomeration. So them being able to see it isn't a big problem. Humans still have a big issue. I'll tell you, 25, 30 years ago, when I spotted the fleet coming in, boy, was the human race ever in shock, or more to the point, the government of the human race and I know for certain, well, I don't know if it was the Canadian government or the US government. I do know somebody from the government contacted me directly, okay, via the news groups, asked me a question, and the next day that whole news group was gone. Okay, but the consortium is not going to show up in force, because if it were to do that, it would shatter mankind's perception of their own world, okay, of their own evolution. And right now, the state of xenosocioeconomic evolution is of the utmost importance to many members of the consortium. Okay, many of them are tied up in research, in studies, to see how this is all going to evolve. Now, of course, the neat part there is many humans are studying the same thing. So you guys are essentially right. There is a great deal of similarity between the UN and the consortium. I'm taking all of this into consideration so I can build a proper world. Now, for those of you that are gamers, okay, some of you may remember a D&D offshoot called Harn. Okay, that was built by my cousin. Okay, but then I don't mind saying his name on air because, well, let's face it. We'll start with the fact that he's the one that put his name on a game system. Okay. Secondly, he would be in his late 60s to early 70s today, if he's still alive, and I don't honestly know if he is. But that being said, Robin Crosby was the guy that created Harn. It took him 7 years to build it. Okay. And with that in mind, he went to a lot of trouble working on the political field. Where we are. I honestly don't know, Shadow. I haven't spoken to Robin in, well, I'm 60 now, so probably 50 years, give or take. I will see if I can find him. Okay. I will certainly put the effort in, but I have no idea. I don't have a copy of the game myself, but no, I knew him when I was a kid. Let me just see if I can find something here. Let us see here. Nope. Don't remember that side of it. I don't honestly even know if he's still alive. No, I don't want that. I want to search only for that one because the other one's spelled wrong. Oh, let's try this. Oh, okay. I spelled the name wrong, but that's okay. They got that sorted out. What have I got here? I'm just scanning through here. Okay, there we are. I don't know. I will reach out and see if I can find him, but I'm not holding my breath on that. You know, I can tell you that just the little I'm reading here, absolutely, there's no question that he was brilliant where it came to gaming, in case you hadn't noticed. But again, like, I'm paying more attention to the political side of things since I started building my own campaign again. Okay, and tying the whole 9 yards together. But the thing we got to understand is the consortium is not here to protect humans. Okay, it is here to protect the planet. So if you guys decide you're going to have a war and you're going to try and kill each other, as long as you don't go to full-scale nuclear, the consortium will let you have your fun. Okay, clearly you're not doing, and this is a good thing, clearly mankind is not doing a good job of killing each other. They've still got a population rise. Okay, now I did put it one way very succinctly. Okay, because I asked how you can see, how if they are so good at killing each other, how it is possible you guys still have a population rise going on. And one young lass I was talking to goes, because and this is a polite way of putting it. She goes, yeah, we're very good at killing each other, but we're better at crawling into bed. Net result, as you can tell, population rise. But the consortium is simply a governing body to keep things running equally for everybody. And that's the other big difference here between the consortium and our local UN. In our local UN, people keep claiming, they yell about how long they've had their country or what color they are as to why they deserve better treatment or more leniency or more perks in the setup. The consortium doesn't do that. They go, whatever you are, no matter how long you've been a member, as compared to how, compared to what you've done. If you're in the consortium, you're in it on a flat ground. Everybody's equal. Okay. And that is one of these things that is fundamentally necessary. Okay. People have asked me, how they work out finances and what have you. Well, here's the neat part. They work the finances out based on one man of one, and I'm going to use the term man hour simply because it's easier than saying everything else. But 1 hour of work is one pay point, if you will. Okay. And that applies to everything. This is why you can't and you don't end up in a whole lot of debt unless you really get stupid. Then you get sold off into slavery. And yes, they do agree with slavery, but it's indentured slavery. In other words, if you're dumb enough to put your time on, your free time on the line to get ahead of time to get something, they are very solid on contract law. Very solid. In other words, you sign on the dotted line, as it were, and you go, I'm going to do this much work for this much of return. Ultimately, it boils down to a reasonable barter system. But if you're dumb enough to commit yourself to something that doesn't pan out, that you don't have the time for, but go back to here, then you will end up in indentured servitude, but only for the amount of hours that you haven't worked. Okay, and yes, that will take dominant precedence over everything else. You dug yourself into the hole. Nobody in the government, no lawyer in the government is going to come in and go, oh, no, he gave me X dollar. Never mind saying anything about it. But you can't bribe a consortium lawyer. You can certainly try. Usually that ends up with you on the dinner table, but that's your call. Okay. I get a kick out of it because the number of things that are going on, I'm seeing more and more similarities between Earth and the consortium than I ever thought I would. And this actually does mean that there is a possibility of a better possibility of turning society around. But we have to work together. Okay. Like the people in this chat room are phenomenal from that standpoint. Okay. Oh, and by the way, just in case you're new here now, we've got a very, very, very small number of people in here. We're only dealing with 7 right now. Okay. But this is more for the people because all of you guys I've seen here before. Okay. But if you're listening to this after the stream is over, or if you're just listening in, if you've got a question, couple of things to keep in mind. One, absolutely put it in the chat room if you're here. Okay, put it in all caps so I can find the thing. All caps, partial caps, at least that wavy hand sign. Okay, if you're watching this after the stream is over and you've got a question that comes up, look below the video. It'll give you all kinds of ways of getting a hold of me. And I am doing my best to answer them all. Okay. Now, with that in mind, doesn't matter to me what the question is. I will do my best to answer it. But yeah, you see, here's a neat little piece of information from my past. I used to have not a cousin. I think it was my dad's cousin. Okay, who it was very much like John's mother in Garfield, where when she put on a spread, I kid you not, for supper, for every supper, she'd have 5 different types of meat, 5 different types of vegetables, and 5 different desserts, all for the same meal. Okay, now understand, it worked out really well for me, but this was an old school way of thinking. Okay, I've always likened it to, she wasn't a very tall woman. You could really look at her and think in the gaming world, this is a tall fellow, except she was as stocky as a stout. Okay. Joe's going, I'm curious, what is the main cause for divorce between a man and woman other than intimacy? That's easy. Finance. Okay. The 2 number 1 causes of divorce: fidelity and finance. And the trick with finance is it's imperative that both parties of the relationship, of a marriage, are both fully aware of where the finances are and what the family view of what they're striving to gain. It's imperative you are on the same page. By the way, this applies to marriage, common law, any sort of a stable relationship. You guys have to have the finances. You don't have to have them balanced, although that would be an idea. But you do both have to know where you're standing. Okay, if you don't know where you're standing, you're going to run into problems. And that is, without a shadow of doubt, the second most common cause of divorce. And it really is a flip of the coin whether fidelity takes place first or financial problems. Quite often the two are sadly linked. Okay, and by the way, hate to tell you this, guys and gals, but you cannot accidentally crawl into bed together. It doesn't work that way. It's not like you can go, oops, I tripped and fell in. Okay, now I do know some stable relationships where both parties have actually fallen out of bed by accident, which, by the way, is a mood killer. But those are the 2 primary causes of divorce. The third most common would be religious differences or spiritual differences. Paranormal Chomp Shop, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Paranormal, this is directly to you because of the fact that, well, clearly you're not able to at this point, but I know you've got a live stream. If you would be kind enough to make sure I get that live stream, I will add to my list of ones that I pop up. Okay, but welcome aboard. I am glad you could join us today. Hopefully things have been going well for you. Now, the neat little part about the consortium itself is they insist on doing things in an orderly fashion. Okay, you don't see in the consortium this person starting to speak and this one interrupting. Okay, they have a system set up, and everybody in the governing body, okay, they are trained. Part of the stipulation of being accepted as a representative is that they absolutely stick to the guidelines, and that's what they, so to speak, Speaker of the House is for, is to keep tabs on who's got something to say and then get to them in order. Okay, they've even got a color coding way of doing it. And the reason for that is because sometimes somebody will go, okay, here's the current topic. And they signal they've got a comment they want to make before the speaker, again, before the if you will, the Speaker of the House gives the go-ahead to change topic, he will make it absolutely certain that everybody that's got something to say gets the opportunity to do so. Okay, and this is a one thing that, because of the fact they use a much more concise. Now they use a holographic display. The reason for it is they've got the tech to do it. Mankind does not have the technology to pull that off yet. Okay, mankind is still working on things. Oh, heavens, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Joe. The sad reality of it is that, the fact you're Catholic or that somebody is Catholic does not make them immune to divorce. I mean, you think back a while, okay, and if I remember history correctly, okay, King Henry VIII created the Protestant church because of two factors. The one that everybody thinks was the cause is that he wanted a divorce and the Catholic Church wouldn't give it to him. So he goes, that's not going to work for me. But that wasn't the backbone of the reason. That was a perk. Okay. Hence the term the Protestant Church. Okay. But the real cause behind it was King Henry VIII found out something else. Okay, and bear in mind, I'm doing this from memory, not from research. You guys get to handle the research side. I don't know what the history books say. I think I've got to read them if I want to know what they say. But King Henry VIII figured out that if somebody died without a will, the church got the property. So King Henry VIII turns around and goes, okay, I'm starting my own church so that if somebody dies without a will, the church gets the money, gets the property. I'm going to start my Protestant church, or more accurately, in my opinion, the Protestant church. And yes, in my religion, you're going to be able to have a divorce if you desire it. And we're not going to excommunicate you. We're just going to cut the ties between you. The other thing you got to remember is marriage, saying when you're getting married. Well, this one I have to take, guys. I'll get back to that. Take it off. Oh, okay, down in Yldrbac today. Yeah. Okay, Daniel's got lunch in the fridge already for you. Okay. Good. Okay, I'm on here. I will see you as soon as you get home. Okay, love you. Bye. Ciao. Like I said, guys, priorities first. It really boils down to this. Family, for me, is absolutely critical. In case you couldn't tell by the number of times I do that. But when King Henry VIII made that happen, it was literally a question of, this way I get all the money. I get all the property if you die without a will. Might be an idea to get a will together. That's more to me than anybody else. Okay. Celeste, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Celeste, now I cannot make that decision for you by any functional stretch. Okay. But I will tell you this. If it's one of these gadgets that you're not worried about making any money off of, then in my opinion, absolutely share it. Okay. I mean, that's just the reality behind it in my eyes. Okay. One last note before I get back into the other side of it. With regards to the divorce, the thing you got to remember, when you get married, it's quite common for people to say, till death do us part. But what they don't tell you is that death that they're referring to, and you're more than welcome there, Celeste, that death that they're referring to is absolutely the death of the emotional bond, not the death of the physical body. Okay, let's face it. Number one, if you're miserable in a relationship, being forced to stay in that relationship is not going to lead to a decent setup. You know, it's really not. You know, the big thing about it is that you've got to be straight in your own head what you're up to. Are you content with this? Okay, with the way things are going. Now, one of the things, the one thing I have seen, okay, like I know of a couple of relationships where, yeah, the relationship came apart. I know of one in particular where the guy says, I'm sorry, you know, he's got 3 kids and a wonderful wife. He goes, I'm sorry, this is just not what I saw my life as. So what did he do? He walked out of the marriage, took the kids with him, but made absolutely certain that their mother had ready access to them at all times, and that individual foot the bill for all of his ex-wife's all of his ex-wife's bills, rent, the whole 9 yards, until she was in a stable relationship. Okay, so much as people may have an argument around divorce, at least he turned around and made sure that he took care of her. Okay, but yeah, where it comes to taking a gadget, okay, you know, when it comes to to creating a gadget, okay, let's face it, you look throughout history, all over the world, different people, you know, groups of different people are creating the same things. Okay, it's a question of what you're doing with it. Now, I'm hoping this little gadget, and this is just a kind of a facetious note, but I'm hoping you know, I will answer that in 10 seconds there, Joe. I am hoping that whatever this little gadget is you're working on there, Celeste, I'm hoping it is not a weapon or something to that effect. Now, Joe, in answer to your question, Joe's just asking, have you given sermons or talks on church before? I used to teach Sunday school. Okay, so we'll start there. Have I during that time, did I ever stand up and give a sermon in front of the church? The answer is yes. Am I willing to talk and or do that sort of thing? At this point, the answer is absolutely yes. And yes, I will tell you I am Christian. I do believe in God wholeheartedly and in Jesus. Am I going to tell you that you're only allowed to worship him by that name? Not a snowball's prayer. But I am quite willing to go that route. Okay, at this point. Okay, will I discuss what's right with the church, what's wrong with the church? Not on this stream. Okay, going the route of giving a sermon, if that's what people decide they'd like to see. And from my standpoint, if it draws a different group of people in here on a given day of the week, I have no problem with it. Okay, according to our calendar, let me just take a peeky here. Where are we here? Yeah, Celeste goes, no, it's definitely a healing tool. Let me see here. See, according to the way we've got the physical calendar set up, okay, the 7th day would be Saturday, because we've got the physical calendar that we work with in the West runs Sunday through Saturday. So if I were going to do it, that would be the most logical place from my standpoint. Okay. Would I, how I'd go about it? Sorry, that one remains to be seen. But that depends entirely on whether or not I get asked to go that direction. Like I said, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I talk about, the tools I offer, are the ones I personally use. The philosophies of life are the ones I quite literally live by. Okay, I'm not about to tell you that, oh my gosh, you like, you're a different skin color than your partner. Oh, you're evil. No, you're not. You're just a different skin color. If you're pulling the legs off cats and dogs, you'll know, pulling the legs off of insects is bad enough. If you're pulling the legs off cats and dogs, there might be something seriously off kilter here. Okay, but would I ever turn around and go, no, this is wrong with what you're doing? I don't go that way. But if that's the direction you guys decide you'd like me to go, even if it's just a question of doing it every now and then, okay, all you guys are going to have to do is ask. That's it. Because the reality of it is, the reason I put this stream together, aside from the fact that so many of you from David from Spaced Out Radio really asked me to start going online, that's where it started, was with the alien races. But the reality behind that is that they are part of the overall picture. Okay, this is not just this world. This reality was not just built for humans. Okay, there's all kinds of other parts to it that I'm pretty certain you're not necessarily aware of. But I appreciate you bringing that up, Joe. And it's one of these things I've thought about, because people keep, that's just where it goes and it just runs. There's a lot of things that need to change in this world. And one of the biggest things is, how do you take your viewpoint from where the world is right now? How do you shift gears and start seeing something a little different, a little brighter? Okay. That's the thing we've got to look at, because each and every one of you is equally important in the evolution of this society, of this whole world. Okay. There's not a one of you that is better, or, this is why I refuse to call people elites. I don't see anybody as being better. And sacrilegious as this is going to sound, I treat God just like another person. Okay. Do I respect him for his efforts? Absolutely. But then again, I take a look at what Nathan put together, is working on, and I look at what Shadow and Sun do in the way of the painting of figures, and I respect their efforts. Okay. Like Doxy, I don't know if Doxy is in the room right now. I think I saw her earlier. I think. Could be mistaken, mind you. Black Dragon, how you doing? Glad you could join us, and send hi to you. And there we have all the bacons back in the house again. Still don't have any bacon myself in my house, which is probably a little depressing in some ways, but oh well, I'll work with it. The reality, Black Dragon goes, I'm just better with bacon. I must say, Black, every time I go into the grocery store, your mind comes to the forefront. You come to the forefront of my mind as I'm walking by the meat department and they've got all this bacon laid out. No, I don't buy it every time I'm going in there. But, what the heck? But the reality of it is, I was told decades ago, Joe, just jumping back to that for half a second. Decades ago, I was told I should start a church of my own, right? Because of the way I was talking to people then. But when I looked into it, here's the reality behind starting a church. Unless you are opening up a Christian church or one of the mainstreams, you're going to run into problem after problem after problem. Okay. And I don't know how to get around that from a legal standpoint. I'm not overly concerned with getting around it from a legal standpoint. I'm not going to do anything illegal. The reality of it is, though, and what I'm finding is happening, amazingly enough to me, people are getting fed up with the road they're being guided down. You'll have to live with it, Black. I've already been to hell. It's a wonderful place. I recommend you don't check it out because, everybody goes in. You can get out, but the journey is a little bit rough. But I kind of thought that saying, no, bacon is bad would be blasphemy. Okay. And I just don't see bacon as being bad. I do see bacon when it's well done is overkill. Okay, I prefer mine, if you will, soft cooked. I still like it when it's a little softer. But that's just my personal taste on that one. But no, the reality is so many people have been following so many different things, and I'm seeing things fracture again. Well, here's the reality of it. If you're building a world, if you're building a belief structure, if you're making laws, which really is what the religious side of things did to start with. Oh, there we go. Celeste goes, Dragon, you'd be proud. You'd be proud. I made bacon and potatoes yesterday, and the pan was singing. It was singing with sizzly joy. The nice thing about bacon is it does make really nice noises as it's approaching. As it's approaching being ready. Although I will tell you, the stuff bites if you get too close to it. But, like I said, I was asked years ago to start a church. The one thing I found out was that, number one, you got to remember, I'm not number one. I do not see myself as any better than anybody else. I don't see any of you as any better. Better at certain things, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I was just looking up here and I don't see Doxy in the house. But Doxy has been planning on working on a very big project. Well, that's very true. And there are very few people, Nathan, that actually don't know what bacon smells like. Okay. There are some that will tell you shouldn't eat bacon because it's meat. Newsflash, humans are omnivores. Okay. And no, beans do not provide the same type of protein that meat does. Okay. Now and you really threw me off track there for a moment in a sense there, Joe. But I do gotta ask if there was a reason. I only flirt with baking and coffee. Well, that's an interesting way of looking at it there, Celeste. I do gotta ask, Joe. Well, I guess I don't technically have to, but that question that you brought up regarding have I ever done sermons regarding religion before? I gotta ask what brought that to light or what brought that to mind. Just because I'm just frankly nosy. And Joe's going, hello, Black Dragon, tell me something very funny. I believe from my standpoint, I just look at you and go, something very funny. But we used to have, when I was growing up, we used to have really, really crude jokes. Things like, you want a really dirty joke? 3 white horses fell in the mud. Yes, that's a very bad one. I realize that. This is why I'm not a stand-up comedian. Nor am I a sit-down one, by the way. But there is so much dissension in the world right now. And when you look at the way that people are, when you look at the world itself, well, Caffeine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, I recognize the name Son Goku, but do I know who it is offhand? No, but don't take that personally. It's quite often I'll hear a name that sounds familiar and I can't figure out where it came from. Okay, but then I hear a lot of names over, in a lot of different places, and I'm still trying to piece them together. But the thing we have to realize is if we're going to change this world, the systems in the world are solid. The systems that are built for this world are absolutely solid. The people that are guiding those systems, quite frankly, need a little bit of a wake-up call, in my opinion. Okay, but the systems themselves are not broken. Thank you, Caffeine. I appreciate that. One of the drawbacks of one of the drawbacks of my being reclusive and withdrawn from the world for frankly 55 years is it's left me with one massive crater as far as information goes that you guys work with. Yes, I'm behind the 8 ball in most fields. Okay, all I've got is memories of what can be done. Okay, and I know for an absolute virtually 100% certainty that we can get back to a world at peace. It's going to take a lot of work. Oh, well, thank you very much, Sir Joe. I really do appreciate that. Now, I'm not quite certain how that's all going to fit in, but will I go? What? Celestials, I'd start a religion of peace just so I can live in a church cathedral. They have such gorgeous buildings. They absolutely are. Some of especially the churches that were built back in the Middle Ages, they were absolutely phenomenal works of art. Now, in case you hadn't noticed, this is no work of art. Okay, at least not on the grand scale of things. But it does bring back to mind that idea from years ago where I knew a guy personally that took a white canvas, painted it off white, framed it with baseboard wood, titled it Whiteout, and sold it for $1 million. Now, with that in mind, this behind me is a work of art. Okay, in all fairness, the black frame there really is a work of art. Not an extremely good one. It's not on the world stage. It's not that great. But I've kept it around for the last 40 years now. Well, yeah, roughly 40 years at this point. But, when I look at this, when we talk about the state of a building, I have come to the conclusion, and this is what I'm working towards, that I desire the inside of my house to be top line. Okay. The outside of my house, I don't care. Okay, I really don't. And the reason for that, well, first of all, I live in an apartment building. What am I going to do with it? But I've always held, I desire the best of the best. Now, exactly, the real question, if I were going to go down the road of talking in terms of the sermon, most people go, let's take a chapter out of the Bible. Not going to happen. I am, however, into reading Deuteronomy now. Like I said, I'm going to read the thing cover to cover, just because, quite literally, because I told my father I would. Okay, but I do agree with you wholeheartedly there, Celeste. I absolutely agree with you that if you're going to start something like that, start it on the road to peace. I always liked the way that Mother Teresa put it. Because she kept getting asked to attend an anti-war rally. And she said, no, I won't be there, ever. But you put together a peace rally and I will do my best to make it to it. Okay. I do not like bugs in the house. But, gnats, that sort of thing, they're just annoying. But I can't do anything about them. One of the biggest things that I am looking and that I am hoping people will turn to, because like I said, with this stream, one of the big things is I desire people to walk away from it feeling better about themselves, feeling that there is something that we can do to turn this world around. Not, oh, we're all heading into the dark ages, we're all going to die. We are all going to die. Every single one of you at some point is going to die. And having been there multiple times, I can tell you, dying is not that big of a deal. But I will tell you, your methods of dying leave a lot to be desired on occasion. One of the big things I'm looking at, and this is why I talk about the fact I'm going to be building an empire. Well, I'm building it. Okay, I'm laying it out as, well, not as we speak. I'm thinking about it as we speak. I put a whole pile of information together on exactly what I desire to do with it. But there is definitely a spiritual path that people have to get back on. And this idea of, where'd it go? I put it down. Oh, I put it down over there. These, great distraction. Unfortunately, these are also the backbone of the zombie apocalypse. How many people do you know of, or how many people have you seen that they'll be staring at this and walking off of a sidewalk into traffic, walk into a telephone pole because they're staring at the idiot box? Okay, it's absolutely amazing. Let's not do that. I love my computer on, my cell phone on occasion. Not really. It's actually a pain in the neck more often than not. Now, I can't use that right now, so I might just as well let it continue. There we go. Now, while I'm busy here, it can upload because I was a little busy last night for it to do it. One thing that we have to look at, well, we don't have to. You've got the right, you've got the choice to stay on the path you're on. Now, when I look at the consortium, I told them the same thing. You guys can keep doing things the way you've been doing. And yeah, I've been around the consortium longer than I've been around Earth. Okay, not this lifetime. For some weird reason, the 60 years I've spent here, most of it's been on Earth. Okay, aside from the frequent take, jaunts up top. But before I took him, it took before I took a corporeal form, I'd already been on the an acting member on the consortium, quite literally for years. This is why I say my life is more like science fiction than anything else. The one thing I will tell you though, okay, is in the consortium, some people are nice, some people are nasty. Okay, it's just like every other species. You get some nice humans, some really nasty humans, and some in the middle humans. And the funny thing about it is I found there's 3 types of people. About 1% make things happen. About 4% watch things happen. And about 95% wonder what happened. Okay, which is, I know that sounds really bad, but that's not just applying to the human race. This applies to every species I've ever run across. Okay, the 1% are not the people with the top money. Those are not the 1% I worry about. Because the reality is, some of the best people I ever met have not got a plug nickel to their name. Okay, but they give you the shirt off their back if opportunity presented itself, as it were. Now, this is why I say, am I asking for your guys' help directly to turn this world around? Yeah. There are a lot of times I fight with this issue of why, and no, I'm not, think first, speak second. In this case, I'm feeling very good today. Okay, but there are times when I question why, pray tell, I even bother, because I don't see a lot of an impact. But it has come to my attention after a couple of conversations in the last few days that the changes that are happening as a direct result of you guys. And for that, I will absolutely thank you. Right now, I just want to refresh that and see what we're sitting at here. There we go. Yeah, this computer does not have as much RAM, as I'd like, but it's working fine. But that's why I say I will be picking up one with a specially dedicated to just running video. Okay. Now, it was already, the Mac Geek months ago suggested I stick with IBM simply because I know the routine. Okay, I know the system and the way it works. Whoops. Chat disconnected and it reconnected. Bonus. Yeah, so I'm looking right now. Our stream at this point has a massive number of people in. We got 7 people in the room. Okay, but it was brought to my attention today that if I look at averages here, that means we likely have something close to 70 listening in. Okay, which is either listening in or picking it up later. But this is not a bad run. With that kind of a number, okay, we've got 575 subscribers, which would make, if you take that same ratio, it would mean, whoop. Joe, that's priceless. Joe goes, I understand the zombie apocalypse and the cell phone thing, but since I have a cemetery behind my house, I don't think I have to worry about dead people actually rising from the graves anytime soon. No, absolutely agree with you. Okay, that side of now, of course, I came across a community down in Borneo or down around that area that did actually bring the dead back to life in a sense. They did reanimate dead bodies using a certain concoction of herbs. And guys, that's somebody else's department. I'm not looking into raising the dead. Okay. I am interested in raising people who are essentially brain dead. And I don't mean clinically. But I mean, they're doing things that you just got to wonder what they were thinking or if they were thinking. Okay. But I'm looking at this and going, we've got to get to more people. Now, there are billions of people that listen to various different spiritual guides telling them the world's going to end. You're living in sin. You're going to go to hell. Well, you're welcome to it. Hot tubs are a little warm for my liking. Okay, but go and have a peek. The ironic part is what the different churches don't tell you is you go to hell if you feel that's where you're supposed to go, not if the priest does. Now, of course, there is that neat little kicker where if the priest tells you you're going to go to hell and you buy into it, you're telling yourself you're going to hell. I got to ask, Joe, you've been watching the graveyard for years. Have you ever seen a ghost get up and dance? I mean, I watched one day. It was absolutely priceless. I watched the spirit get out of a gravesite, and he literally went and danced on the grave a couple of graves over. Okay, he was really happy the other one ended up passing away. Why? I don't know. I didn't get into it. In all fairness, Joe, I don't think you have to worry about the dead actually climbing out of the grave, period. But you can worry about it if you'd like. The one thing that we have to remember is regardless of what walk of life you come from, regardless of what your past, every single one of you is in exactly the same position. You're all right here, right now. Okay, and this is the only time in your life you're ever going to be able to accomplish anything. Okay, you can think about it, you can talk about it, but until you act on it, which has to be done right here, right now. If you don't do that, you can postpone it as long as you want, as long as you desire, but it will come back to the here and now. Okay, the question is, what kind of a world do you desire to co-create? Would you like to keep working at bolstering the fear machine and rebroadcasting and reposting how many people are getting shot? Or would you rather turn around and post things like, oh, look, like I watched a video the other day where a grizzly bear fished a crow out of the water. Okay, didn't eat it, just fished out of the water, set it on the bank, and then the bear walked off. Yeah. Joe goes, nope, never. But I've seen personally the casket being covered with a lot of dirt immediately after the funeral. Absolutely. There's a lot of misunderstanding about that aspect. I remember back in England that we used to leave a bell connected, a bell connected and run down into the top of the casket. Because unfortunately, so many people, when the grave robbers, not the greatest people in the world, by the way, although I did utilize them, that's another story. So many of them would open up a casket and find out that somebody had been alive when they got buried. And they knew this because of the nail scratches on the bottom of the lid. So we took to putting an air hole with a bell string into it when we buried the people, just in case. And yes, once in a while the bell would ring, and then you dug like a monkey as fast as you could possibly do it. Now, do understand, the good news is as soon as they rang the bell, what we used to do is we go down, we go to the grave that the bell was ringing on, and we put our mouth right down near the air hole, and we call in, we're going to dig you out. Help is here. And then the bell would stop ringing, and we'd dig as fast as we could and haul the person out. I'll tell you, they went through a lot of trauma, and most of them after that were really claustrophobic. Okay, I remember one case where somebody literally, he was a big boy when we buried him. Well, he was a big boy after we buried him. But he literally dug his own way out. Because what he did was we had the coffin built, we had him inside with a little hole. And what this little boy did was he stuck his fingers into the hole and then broke the lid and then dug his way out of it. Of course, he had to dig pretty quick because once he broke the lid, now the dirt started to come in and he didn't have the air hole anymore. But that's the only time I ever saw somebody dig out of a grave. Okay, a number of them got out of the grave after they were buried, during the Civil War. You bury them in rock, and then they'd wake up because they weren't quite dead, and they'd push the rock out of the way. Not that big of a deal. I mean, it's shocking as all get out for the people going through the area, but but what we have to realize is when we look at the consortium, the human UN, this whole idea of a one world government is not a dictatorship. Okay, one world government, which is what people keep worrying about. The reason people worry about it is because they're looking at it, because they've been told to, that one person runs the world. This is not a one world government. This is a dictatorship, a global dictatorship, but a dictatorship nonetheless. Okay, and on the whole, they don't work well. By the way, just a weird question for you, but when you think about putting somebody into a place in power, who would you rather, and I don't mean name, what kind of person would be the best suited to put into power, to put into a position of power? Whether we are talking a company or a government, doesn't matter. What type of person is the best one to put into a control position? Okay, and like I said, I'm not looking at names, I'm not looking at titles, but I'm looking at the qualification, and there's a very big primary qualification for picking a good leader for a company or for a country to make sure it gets handled in an equal fashion. The one thing the consortium figured out, okay, that humans have not pieced together. Casey goes, not sure how to answer that. Compassionate, dispassionate. It's a shot. I will, and rest assured, I'm just giving people a couple of moments to come up with an idea. I do have an actual answer for you. One that I found out a long time ago. Okay. And, the reality of it is there's a very simple way of doing it. But the consortium figured out if they're going to make laws, everybody, especially in the government, okay, like especially in a ruling body, has to follow the laws that are being laid out. Well, actually, in one sense, I agree with you, Joe. Rest assured, God doesn't have a tendency of raising the dead. But humans and all corporeals, for that matter, if they can't detect a heartbeat, they will tag the person as dead. That person may not be dead, but if you can't detect a heartbeat, that's all you're working with. Okay, so it becomes a question of whether or not of what that definition is. I know the doctors were really surprised because it takes a long time to go from the hospital room to the morgue. And I will tell you, it threw the doctors for one heck of a loop when I walked out of the morgue. Threw the tech for an even bigger one, by the way. You know, the thing is, and the reason you don't have to worry about God going, oh, I'm going to raise that person. It's because you've got a life. Okay. Now, the human body is designed to last literally for centuries. Okay. It literally is designed to last for centuries. And the problem is there is so much negativity, so much toxin in the food you eat, in the air you breathe, in the thoughts you have. There is so much toxicity that the world and that the human race is in trouble. Okay. Now, it may take another 50 to 100 years before you guys figure it out. Okay. But if we just go with the idea, just take it for granted this is an issue. Somebody else can figure that out. Because that's a matter of air capacity in a coffin and your lung capacity. I'm betting probably only half an hour-ish. Okay. Now, of course, when we started cutting holes and leaving the bell line down, you had an unlimited supply of air, so you could literally starve to death down there. But we were as coroners, we were pretty in tune with whether or not we were hearing a bell ring. Matter of fact, I know that myself and my staff used to walk the graveyard usually 2 to 3 times a night just to check on the bells. We weren't worried about it. Now, of course, that had the added bonus of chasing off grave robbers. But I don't even know the beginning of how to figure out the mathematics there. Okay, if somebody wants to figure that out, that's a whole lot better at math than I am. Have a happy and be an interesting piece of information. So I mean, we are looking at a lot of things changing at this point. Okay, but now is the time to get started on it, not 6 months down the road. It's like I told my little brother today when we were talking about finances. I know the state I'm in. I also know how much room I've got to work. Right? But like I told him, if I don't do anything about it now and I wait until June to do something about it, I'm in serious trouble. Okay? Prior to that, I'll be fine. So it's just going to take some time to get things organized. That's all. But it is time to start changing things. Joe, I'm just sitting here going, it's Christine. How you doing? Glad you could join us. I'm thinking, I'm thinking I'm going to bounce this off my other half as well and see what she has to say. Because quite frankly, I'm not one to make decisions, not anymore, really quickly. Did I get any? I did not. Sort of have to now. I think today's Tuesday. What the heck is today? Where are we? There we are. Yeah, today is Tuesday. So I will have to take a look at things and figure out where I'm going there. But it's an interesting can of worms you open up there, Joe. Like I said, you always come up with ideas, almost always, that are really bang on the money. Okay. Now, that being said, I will think about that. It won't happen right now. That's for absolute certainty. I could look at, well, Saturday would be the 7th day of the week. But on the flip side of that, if I do it on a Wednesday, it's halfway between the two, and you get a little bit, it comes in at a very different time, right smack in the middle of most people's stress levels. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Oh, anyway, back to the question. Like I said, I get back to it. I give people a couple of minutes. But the best person to put in a position of power, quite frankly, is the one that does not desire it. Because that's the one that's going to make sure as many people as possible are taken into consideration. Okay, when they're working something out. The best, and my father used to say, the best person to give a job that was a difficult job to, was to pick the laziest person you had on staff and tell them to get it done. Because the laziest person on staff, according to my father, was the one that would find the easiest way to do something and thereby get it done the most efficient fashion. Okay, of course, it might be an idea that, in my opinion, to pick a lazy person with a real perfectionistic streak to them. They'll still find the easiest way to get it done, but they'll get it done right. But that's the answer to the question I was talking about who to put in power. Put somebody in a guide position that doesn't desire to be there. And no, before anybody jumps on that point, that was not a hint. Rest assured, the last thing I ever wanted to do, this really didn't rank up there on my list of things to do down later in life, or earlier for that matter. This whole stream thing kind of came out of the blue on me in a way. Well, shouldn't call them the blue. I was on a few other shows years earlier. But things are certainly taking an interesting turn. Okay. Needless to say, and like I said, where are we? Go way back up here. There we go. See, you started my brain working, Joe, and that I'm going to blame you for that one. Well, my brain works a hyperdrive all the time anyway. But when you're thinking in terms of a sermon, are you thinking in terms of the same idea you grew up with, as in, let's take a chapter out of a Bible, or are we thinking more in terms of, let's take a look at a situation and focus on that, okay, and see what pops? Again, it's just a question of brainstorming at this point. It's an intriguing question. Yeah, Emmy goes, I'm being cremated. From my standpoint, I don't care. Bury me, bury me, cremate me, put me into a lab unit, and pull my body apart. Don't care. But for pity's sake, decapitate me before you say you're doing anything. My mom, my dad, and both of my brothers were cremated. I'm surprised that they didn't actually want my one brother for medical purposes, for research purposes. But as far as I understand, all four of them were cremated. My dad was simple about it. I'm not having a gravesite where anybody's going to be tied to it. And from my standpoint, like I told my ex, we got talking about it one day. I said, look, when I don't care if you bury me, take me out in the bush and drop me off. But the animals will take care of it. And she goes, but you have to be buried. So dig a hole. If you really need me wrapped in something, wrap me in a cardboard box and dump me in the hole. I'm not that worried about it. Once I'm dead, I'm dead. Lord knows I've crossed that barrier often enough to know I'm not overly concerned about it. Okay, that's just the reality from my side of it. Where are we sitting here? Really? The fact of the matter is, when I take a look at the consortium, they've got a beautiful layout. Humans figured it out to a degree, but they still got to get past the idea that your skin color doesn't matter. It's not a relevant concern regarding whether or not you're doing something right. Okay. And the fact that somebody's been sitting in that, you know, a long time does not make it theirs. Now, centuries back, and really not that many, the so-called North American Indians, their own belief structure said, from everything I heard from them directly, was that the land did not belong to anybody. They were just caretakers. Well, the entire human race are caretakers, albeit they're doing an absolutely pathetic job of it in most cases. There are some of you out there doing a smashing job of it. Okay. And, hats off to you. But the staggering majority of them really aren't. This is just one of those things that I look at and just strikes me as being a little bit odd that we can spend so much effort, so much money on hurting each other and virtually none on trying to help each other. Comparatively speaking, the ratios are way off. Okay, there's something wrong with this philosophy, especially when you consider that so many people around, and we'll stick to the consortium, to the UN. Okay, there are so many people that talk about let's have world peace, let's arrange peace. Well, I'll tell you what, first rule of arranging peace: take that funny gun that you've got in your hand, put it on the shelf, and leave it sit there. Whether it's a gun, a knife, a pair of brass knuckles, it doesn't matter. Put the weapon down. It's a good start. Okay. We'll work on the language and the lack of calling names. After we stop holding our hand over the button, I want peace or I'm going to blow you up. This is not peace. Okay. It doesn't work. In case you hadn't noticed, World War I was supposed to be the last war. For that matter, the Battle of Hastings was supposed to be the last war. Okay, that was way back in 1066. That didn't work out all that well either. Now, the fact that we are sitting there, my throat is starting to seize a bit. I'm going to go give this guy a drink and I'll be right back. I will talk to you about that in momentarily. Oh, okay. And now that I have my coffee, we're good. Very important we have my coffee. Very important. Uh-oh. Where are we here? Just come back in. Okay. Now, Albert Pike, I have no idea who that is. I remember who Christopher Pike was, but I don't think that's the same guy. Oh, Derek, that is a plastic replica of a human skull. Do not recall where I got it. I didn't dig it up for some weird reason. But it did used to have a working mandible. Like I said, I have weird things I hang on to. But yes, that is a human skull. Or more to the point, this is a plastic mold of a real one. That always looks nice. Sure, free with me holding on. I believe you did this before. You know, Horatio, I knew him well. No, I don't know the rest of the verse, but somebody else can figure that one out. But I had a spirit that I told flat out when they showed up, look, you want a place to live, be my guest. Take up residence in the skull. Now, like I said, it had a working mandible. Jaw was here. After they took possession of it, it would sit there, and you get to imagine what all I could see with this, because the thing was fully occupied. Okay, but at one point, I thought it was actually male. Turned out that it was an ex-girlfriend of mine from 2018-ish. Yeah, 2017, 2018. I just gotten out of prison and out of jail, rather. And I was standing on the street corner with her, and somebody went to shoot me. Well, I turned because of the guy I was, not a nice guy, I'll tell you. I turned and put her between me and the shooter. She didn't survive, so when she finally tracked me down, that was back in 2017. Okay. She finally tracked me down. Oh, Christine, what I said was I spent in 2014, I was in jail. Okay. Would have been about 2017 when I have been dating Samantha for probably 2 years at that point. Only somebody decided they wanted to kill me, and I put her between me and him. She took offense to it. Okay. But when she tried to kill my current wife, I evicted her. And I kid you not, right when I evicted her, the jaw broke in 3 places. It broke here, and right in the middle. And I never saw her again. I never saw Sam again. But on the other hand, my wife lived. And there is a very big difference between jail and prison. Jail is local. Prison is after you go to the big house. Was really kind of, like I said, I was not nice in that lifetime. But doing my best to stay on track. Obviously, that doesn't work that well. Yeah, definitely not there, Derek. Definitely not. Of course, I never actually ended up. Whether you're in jail or whether you're in prison, you never accept the Snickers bars. This is a bad idea. Okay, and rest assured, it's kind of like the same rule of thumb. Don't eat any snow that is not white. I don't care what the color. But no, the consortium is literally everybody that is in the council. What you would call the House of Commons or what have you. Every single one of them abides by the same laws they pass. This is something that the Terran UN hasn't figured out. Okay, and the Terran legal system has really botched the job on it. The system is right. The problem is, the biggest problem with it all is that they haven't figured out that if a law is passed, it's got to apply to everybody, regardless of money, regardless of skin color or heritage, or orientation for that matter. Hey, look at that. We went fuzzy again. In answer to your question there, Derek, my eldest is almost done another of his college courses, and my son is looking, and my youngest is looking at going back and going into college in the first place. So they're getting their lives in order. In my case, I just decided I was not going to let them walk down the same road I did this lifetime. Joe, yeah, this was definitely in my past life, not this one. Okay, I was born in 1898. Okay, I was born in Chicago, Illinois, in 1898. By 1914, by 1914, I was in jail for aggravated assault. Okay, now I had no excuse for it. It was just I thought it needed to be done, so I beat the stuff out of a few people. The cops decided this was bad. They put, and I, contrary to my pleading with them, I told them, do not put me in that jail with those people. You don't want me in there. You've got all these people you've got to go to court. You don't want me in there. And I begged with them, I'm 16 years old going, don't put me in the jail. Well, they took a hard line and went, look, you did the crime. You're going to jail. So they put me in the cell with 7 other criminals. Oh, that's what went down. And the next morning, the cops came in. There's 7 corpses. And the cops took a look at me and went, what happened? I said, they were a-holes. I told you don't put me in here. Okay. They said, well, you killed them because they were a-holes? I said, no, I didn't kill them. Well, this guy's got his arm torn off. That I did. But after I tore his arm off, he was still breathing. I didn't kill him. Somehow they didn't see it quite the same way. On the flip side of that, the military was very quick to pick me up and put me to work. Now, bear in mind, I'm talking about putting me to work to go into World War I, at which point I ended up working on, I forget what the name of the project was, but I was right smack in the middle of helping develop mustard gas. I'm just looking at it now there, Derek. Gotta take my glasses off or I can't see it. Oh, there, yeah, I see that one up there. I wonder if there's a better picture of it, because I see the one you're talking about. Yeah, let's face it, stars just don't blink out of existence. Now, here's the thing with that one blinking out of existence. By the look of that, of what I'm seeing, it blinks out of existence. Ouch. Blinks out of existence because of the cloud cover. But, that being said, it still falls under that neat character and that neat category of unidentified flying object. You can't identify it, therefore, it's unidentified. But when we tell you the one thing that the human, that Terran UN has got to figure out, and this is something that the way I'm running things with my campaign, I've actually got these different people. Now, as you know, okay, especially if you're a gamer, not all people get along. With D&D, you've got your, chaotic evil and lawful good just don't get along. Except in the case of the gods. Okay, and I've got these guys sitting up around a gaming table. I mean the gods themselves sitting up around a gaming table, playing a game with the humans. In this case, with the player characters. Seemed like an interesting twist on things. But when I talk about all of it being connected, okay, the more I look at things, the more I piece things together, the easier it is to stay focused. And I will tell you, the one thing about what Joe has opened the can of worms with is this. Okay, if I look at that venue, okay, it is an evolution to the stream we're currently on. But it's time we start guiding people back into a much more positive fashion. Okay, because I will tell you, if we stay on the path we're currently on, all the organizational tools that are out there will be almost pointless. Oh, they absolutely do, Derek. There is no question there's a staggering amount of ships that are out there that I'm aware of. I'm still looking for who the heck owns the Tic Tacs, but I've got them listed somewhere here. But I know they've got Strazazian and Tormenon ships, okay, stowed away. Not to mention the Zeta Reticulan and the Martokian. They've even got a Mobian ship that I'm aware of. Okay, as well as a number of the Consortium ships, and I'm talking the atmospheric scanners. Okay, there's a number of other ships that are out there that I know for a certainty humans have possession of. And yes, contrary to what some people are saying, there are refugees here from other planets that are are being housed by governments around the world. And I call it housed because it's very difficult. It's a really bad idea to start torturing a telepath. Not only is there a problem on your end, but they will send out a cry for help immediately. Okay, and go, I'm being tortured. Come and get me. And then you wouldn't have any question of whether there were any off-worlders on the planet. Okay, but I am building actually a governmental superstructure, not only for my gaming world, but for my writing as well. Okay, and now, well, things are going to evolve, obviously. It's just a question of figuring out how to make it work in the best way possible. But again, people, regarding this whole idea of looking at the concept of doing something in the lines of a sermon, that depends on what gets asked. I'll look into the possibilities of it and see what happens. But at this point, will I be starting it this week? Not a prayer. But it is something to consider. It is something I will talk to my half about and see what she has to say. Okay. Yeah, there goes a lot of the craft are in our oceans. Oh yeah, very definitely. And let's face it, there's a lot of places in the ocean that humans just can't get to. There's a lot that are buried in ice as well, by the way. And every now and again, you get one that drops into a volcano, which pretty much writes off recovery. Don't kid yourself. there is a lot of interaction going on that you're not being told about. But the reality behind it is this. If we approach this whole setup, Derek, I'm not sure if I did. Just scanning, but where are we here? Okay, the last question I saw you answer, Derek, was do you guys see that human skull? If you wrote something else, okay, if you'd be kind enough to repost it, I will do my best to answer it, but it's not, I don't see one after that. There we go. Oh, no, humans very seldom cause the crash. Depending on the crash, but thank you for reposting there, Derek. What usually causes the crash is usually either a technological glitch. I hesitate to call it pilot error, simply because of the way the ships usually run, and of course it depends on which craft we're referring to. Some of them are just completely computer run, not AI. Okay, there's only one race that believes that AI is a really good thing, but more often than not, it is simply a technological glitch. Okay, sometimes it's caused, and sometimes humans may have something to do with it. Most of the time, it's simply a technological hiccup. The other big area is interstellar war. Because I've seen situations where you've got a bunch of UFOs and you've got lights flashing between them. This means they're attacking each other, not human. Okay. And that's the other big cause for a ship to drop. Now, that being said, before anybody worries about it, no, the consortium is not going to authorize an aerial strike against any military base or civilian base anywhere on Earth. It's not going to happen. That is not what they're here to do. They're also not going to come down and straighten your mess out. Okay. Most of the time, when a ship crashes, though, most of the time, the pilot gets yanked before the ship hits the ground. Net result, much as there's a lot of alien technology that humans have, there's not a lot of survivors. Okay, now I will be back in. We're hitting the 2-hour mark here. Actually, I think we're just about. But I really want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I really do appreciate it. If you guys would like to go down the road that Joe has suggested, okay, drop me a note, be it in the comments or be it, or in the, in an email to me. Even for that matter, some of you have my number to text. Okay, absolutely let me know. We'll see where things go. I will be back when I do get back. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.